You know, there's this huge, high-stakes question that every single growing business hits at some point. How in the world do you bring in new customers without ticking off the loyal ones who got you there? Get it wrong, and you could be looking at a Kohl's-level disaster. But get it right, and you could be the next North Face. Let's break down exactly how you do that.
I mean, if you want to see just how high the stakes are, just look at this. On one side, you've got the North Face. They brilliantly managed to bring in urban explorers right alongside their hardcore outdoor fans, and boom, their revenue shot up. But on the flip side, you have Kohl's. They tried to go after a younger, trendier crowd, and it backfired spectacularly. They alienated their core customers, and their stock price just fell off a cliff, dropping a staggering 89%. That right there is the tightrope of growth.
All right, so how do you walk that tightrope? Here's our game plan. First, we're going to tackle the growth dilemma head-on. Then we'll uncover a little something I'm calling the $130 million secret. After that, we'll look at what happens when customer worlds collide. And we'll wrap it all up with 3 paths to peace.
Okay, let's kick things off with the growth dilemma itself. The fundamental issue is this. You'd think that more customers is always a good thing, right? But the reality is, bringing in new people with totally different needs, different values, or different identities can, well, start to cause some real friction with the customers you already have.
But, okay, before we even get into fixing that friction, we got to understand why it's so dang important to keep your current customers happy in the first place. It's not just some feel-good idea, it's a huge financial advantage. There's actually a secret number hiding in here that most companies completely miss. And it all starts with something that seems incredibly small. So researchers went and dug through almost 2 decades of data from over 100 US companies, and what they found is pretty mind-blowing. For every single point increase in a company's customer satisfaction score, get this, its future cost of selling drops by nearly 3%. Now that might not sound like a huge number, but think about it. Making your customers just a tiny bit happier directly cuts how much you have to shell out for marketing and sales down the road. And look, that 3%, it really, really adds up. For the average company in this study, it worked out to an incredible $130 million in savings every single year. So here's the takeaway. Keeping your current customers happy isn't an expense. It's a massive investment that pays you back over and over and over again.
Now, this benefit isn't the same for everyone, right? The effect gets supercharged for a few types of companies. Highly diversified firms where that customer goodwill just spills over to all their other products. Firms in high-growth industries where positive word of mouth is absolute king. And service-based businesses, because when customers are happy, they just tend to stick with what they know.
So how does this magic actually happen? It's simple, really. Your happiest customers basically become your own unpaid marketing department. They're out there telling their friends, they're leaving 5-star reviews, and they're spreading your story on social media. And they're doing it all for free. This is the economic engine you have to protect. All right, so now we know why keeping customers happy is basically a financial superpower. The next big question is, how do you do it? How do you bring in those new folks without upsetting the very people who are generating all that amazing value for you? This is where we need to dive into the psychology of it all. And luckily, researchers have come up with a brilliant way to think about this. It turns out the relationship between your old customers and your new ones really boils down to 2 key questions. First, are they looking for different things from your brand, what we call divergent value, or does the value actually get better when they use it together, making it collaborative? And second, do these groups just not care about each other? Are they indifferent? Are they actually influenced by one another? Answering those questions gives us 4 types of relationships. First up, separate communities. Nike is the perfect example here. Their running customers and their basketball customers want completely different things, right? Different shoes, different tech, different heroes, and honestly, they could not care less about each other's existence. That lets Nike grow by targeting each world completely on its own.
Okay, next up, we've got connected communities. This is where you see those amazing network effects. Think about platforms like eBay or LinkedIn. The more people who join, doesn't matter if they're buyers or sellers, recruiters or job hunters, the more valuable the whole platform becomes for every single person on it. So in this case, more is literally more for everybody.
Then there's number 3, leader-follower segments. This one's all about hierarchy. When a top professional chef, the leader, is seen using Le Creuset cookware, it signals a certain level of quality and authenticity. And that, in turn, makes it way more desirable for all the home cooks,
the followers, who want to level up their own kitchen game. And finally, we arrive at the danger zone, incompatible segments. This is what happens when different groups want different things from a brand and they're negatively influenced by each other. As the source material points out, the Bud Light backlash is an example of this, where a campaign targeting a new audience sparked a clash with the values held by some of its traditional customers. That's when you get serious conflict. So, when this conflict does happen, where is it actually coming from? Well, it usually boils down to one of four things. First, there's functional conflict. Think of Starbucks. The morning commuters just trying to grab a coffee quickly get in the way of the people who want to hang out there all day. Then you have brand image conflict. That's when Tiffany started selling affordable silver jewelry and it kind of threatened their super exclusive high-end image. Third is user identity conflict. When the skate brand Supreme went all in on high fashion, it stopped being a clear signal that you were a real skateboarder. And finally, there's ideological conflict, which we just saw in the Bud Light example.
Okay, so we get the problem. We see the different types of conflict. But how do you actually fix it? That brings us to our final part. 3 super clear, actionable strategies you can use to manage these conflicts and make sure your growth is peaceful.
Well, you've got 3 main strategies, 3 paths to peace. Number 1, you can separate them. Starbucks does this masterfully. They have fast drive-thrus for the commuters and cozy cafes for the loungers. Problem solved. Number 2, you can create hierarchy. You turn that potential conflict into a leader-follower situation. Levi's is the master here, with its different lines, the premium blue tab, the classic red tab, and the affordable signature line. Each has its own place. And number 3, and this one takes guts, sometimes you have to fire a segment. Six Flags famously did this when they jacked up their prices to attract more families, and intentionally push out the rowdy teens who weren't spending as much money anyway.
And really, that brings us right back to the core idea of all of this. Growth isn't just about getting bigger for the sake of getting bigger. It's about getting bigger in a smart, sustainable way. At the end of the day, the goal isn't just growth, it's peaceful growth. It's about finding a way for your new and old customers to live together happily, or even better, to make your brand stronger together.
So, I'll leave you with this question. Now that you've got this framework in your head, start looking around at the brands you use every day. Which ones do you see navigating this dilemma like a pro? And which ones look like they're headed straight for a collision? I promise, once you start seeing the world this way, you won't be able to unsee it.